Hello, and thank you for joining us on the PowerPlay podcast. As always, I'm Jordan Shannon. I'm joined by Kieran Powell. How are you, Kai, in beautiful Trinidad?
I'm not too bad. Getting to grips with the heat again and all the travel stuff, but not too bad. How are you?
Yeah, I'm not too bad, thank you. The clocks going forwards always helps in the UK. It makes the days a little bit longer, which is a massive bonus. Have you been practicing today so far?
Yeah, I had a hit this morning. Had a hit yesterday morning as well. So
Oh, decent.
not bad. Pitches
Cool.
were
Cool.
a lot better than I expected. Practice services, so
Oh, so
good.
that's a bonus. I think the perfect place to start is the announcement, from the Cricket West Indies yesterday with, Kraigg Brathwaite standing down, and then obviously the announcement of Shai taking over as the T20 captain. What was your initial thoughts on the announcement, really?
I think it was very much out of the blue. Uh, I think that it could have been done, I guess, more. Not strategically. I would say strategically is the word, but it could have been put across
Professionally?
better. Professionally for sure, but it could have
Yeah.
been put across better in the sense that okay, you've announced that one guy is now the captain of two formats, but you will announce the captain of the test team in a few weeks. Was there a need to make this announcement? No.
No.
At the start of the next round of matches, there's no
No
West
immediate
Indies
T20 fixtures, is there? So there's no.
T20 or test match fixtures coming up now. So you could have just done this in a few weeks' time when you're going to announce that Shai Hope is probably going to be the captain for all three formats anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm not sure. I guess what was the thinking behind it and what was the thinking behind this time as well.
Yeah.
Again, in the middle of the IPL, so it's going to be drowned out in all the noise anyway.
Well, yeah, there is that, and like you said, I think it just the way it came across was just I don't know, it just lacked a little bit of professionalism from my perspective, um, and also, yeah, it's just the timing. It's just there's just no need just yet. There's just no
Yeah,
need.
yeah, it was pretty much a shock to me when I saw the guys talking about, oh, well, I mean, I pretty much knew that either Kraigg was gonna step down or Kraigg was gonna be removed.
Yeah,
That was it was not gonna last. Kraigg wasn't gonna continue on for much
no,
longer. And I didn't think that Kraigg was a great captain to begin with anyway. So um, yeah, I
yeah,
think that for sure would have been the right decision. I think, lots of people are gonna look at it and say, well, he won a game in Australia, he won a game in Pakistan. You have no other senior players, but I think a lot of that is the own fault of the West Indies Cricket Board,
yeah. I was just going to say that. Yeah,
yeah, and maybe Kraigg had a part to play in that as well because you had senior players in and around the team. You had like the likes of Bonner, who's been dropped, averaging 38. Kyle Mayers, who's been dropped, averaging 32. Blackwood for all his faults. And then you look at some of the guys that are playing in this current team, and you'd be biting your arm off to have some of the previous guys back in this team, and that's no
definitely.
disrespect or slight towards any of these guys. These guys just simply haven't played enough cricket and developed to be able to produce at a higher level on the international stage. So um, you can't fault a guy for playing. He didn't select himself, but at the end of the day, I think that um, I guess the West Indies had a hand to play in the current situation that we're at with the lack of senior players or options being
Yeah,
available. So
yeah, and I think that's going to be Daren Sammy's first port of call. Is ultimately going to be trying to get some experience and some um yeah experience going to be the big thing into that team where who that'll be and where that they'll fall into this 11 will be ultimately down to for Daren Sammy to figure out and ultimately the test captain, whether that is Shea or whether it be some ultimately I think that you look at the list there, there isn't many standouts, there really isn't. We spoke about this loads and loads of times, but there isn't from a candidate perspective. Yeah, you really are you're limited. You really are.
I think, I mean, obviously, there's several different telltales as well that if you look at cricket carefully enough, you can sort of figure out, okay,
Yeah,
something's happening because you look at Craig's performances this season as well. He scored a double century against
yeah,
the Academy, but you look at pretty much how he's batted for most of the other games and like the way he's getting out, like you could see sort of a defeated man, like a broken man,
yeah,
who probably would want to be pretty much anywhere else at this point in time,
yeah,
but playing cricket and just having some time off. But obviously the demands of the game, the contractual situation, etc.,
yeah.
and having to, I guess, turn up to work. Um, but I don't think that if you really looked at the season carefully, you would think that Kraigg Brathwaite was going to be the West Indies captain. Looking at his demeanor, most of them, not even his performances or anything, but he just looked like a broken man, and that's definitely not the, I guess, way he carries himself in regional cricket, at least anyway.
No. And I think at the end of the day, it can get to you as well like that. And from that perspective, it probably is well timed for him to allow to just become that batter again, figure out what how he that headspace and his overall mental well-being in terms of just being able to be a batter again. Like you said, he has looked like he's been carrying a lot of weight on his shoulders. So with the captaincy being removed, it'll allow him to go in and just be a batter, and I think it'll have an advantage. Because would you say he still is? He's going to be in that side as an opening batter anyway, still, do you believe or not?
I'm not sure about that.
Right.
As I said, coming into the season, I think the top seven was all question marks. The only guaranteed spots in that team for me were the three seamers and the spinner, based on the
Yeah.
previous series or the previous two series. So I mean, it depends. It depends on, I guess, how Sammy wants to go about it. Does he want to keep Kraigg for his experience, and sort of say, okay, we'll continue to try and find the next opener that we can groom and partner with Kraigg for now until that person is experienced enough, and then
To be able
we'll
to.
tell Kraigg, thank you for your services, or is this a matter of we'll thank Kraigg for his services now and start afresh under the Sammy regime and how he wants to go about playing the game. So, I mean, I think you look at, I mean, again, more telltale signs. You have Brandon King, who's going to probably end up playing, what, 4 matches this season. I expect him to be in and around that next test team.
Yeah.
As I said earlier, I expect Shai Hope to be named captain of the test team. That's just my gut instinct. I think that if you read that press release, it said that Shea was recommended personally
Personally,
by,
yeah.
by Sammy, and that's where they went with that. And
Yeah.
it's clear that him and Sammy have a good working relationship, and it would just make sense if both of them are across the spectrum, to sort of have both of them work together across the spectrum, as opposed to working with different people for, I guess, the different formats, and that confuses things a bit in terms of communication and, I guess, lines of thinking and carrying out, I guess, game plans. So I'm fully expecting Shai Hope to be named the Test captain in a few weeks' time when the West Indies make that announcement.
Yeah. A couple of things I just wanted to ask you about. We've spoken again on this podcast quite a bit about communication. So, how important do you believe it is this next phase? Let's call it phase, or let's call it next chapter under the Daren Sammy regime, where you've got Kraigg Brathwaite now the captaincy's gone and his position. How key is it to get that communication right to him so he is aware of his situation, whether he's involved in the plans moving forward or whether or if he's got to force his way to maintain his his place at the top of the order, not just from a perspective of for Kraigg, but also within the whole group of players in that region where the communication is that spot on and the clarity is so clear that people are aware of what's happening. Do you think that'll have a positive impact within the region if the clarity is it's clear?
Well, I think that's been something that I guess you've heard the limited overs players speak about with Sammy being introduced as the
Yeah,
coach for the limited overs teams, is the communication and consistency in
yeah,
messaging and understanding what is needed across the board. So I think that's something that the West Indies Cricket Board may have thought that Sammy will be able to bring to the Test team, along with getting some of, I guess, the preferred white ball players that they
yeah,
think can cross over into Test cricket to make themselves available. I think that that level of communication should be consistent and offered to not just Kraigg, but all players
that's what I'm saying. Yeah,
across the region, so that you have a clear understanding of this is what we are looking for. And I know Sammy likes to speak about roles more so than personnel. So he'll make it clear that this is the role he's trying to fit, and it doesn't matter who the person is.
yeah,
If someone gets injured or someone is out of form, the next person up needs to be able to fulfill this role within his
yeah,
team, as opposed to this player coming into his team.
yeah,
So I think across the region that will be made clear. Now, for
yeah,
someone like Kraigg, who's just lost the captaincy, it's a funny thing because I'm a firm believer in how you get it is how you lose it. And the way that Kraigg became the West Indies full-time captain, I think a lot of his own countrymen would not have been too happy with that, because obviously he got it from Jason Holt, and it wasn't
yeah,
done, I guess, in a manner that lots of people thought was forthright. And so, I mean, life is a cyclical thing, and how you got it is how you lost it. But if they're interested in keeping him in and around that test team and that test setup, then it's going to it's going to have to be a situation where
yeah,
he's, I guess, nurtured in a way, because I mean, obviously, something like that could dent the psyche and the ego of a person, because it's always going to be international news, gaining and
yeah,
losing captaincy. And so if you want a batter to be able to focus and contribute and go back to giving you what you deem his best, then you need to have him in the right mental frame to be able to do so. And so it's going to be important and interesting to see how they, I guess, communicate with him, how they nurture him along, if they want to keep him around that testing.
yeah. No, I think the point, yeah, that you made there is spot on, and that's sort of what I was trying to get at as well. I think the communication that the players have spoke about Sammy is key, and I think that's his big, a big positive moving forward. Mentioned and then about you went on to speak about Shea. Really, where do you see him? Well, one, you need the confirmation of him actually returning to Test cricket, because obviously nothing's been official there. Yes, I appreciate he played a first class match for Barbados, but again, nothing's obviously been official. He's actually returning to Test cricket anyway. And then obviously from the captaincy perspective, but where do you see him fitting into that batting lineup? Given that I'm sure the last time he played Test cricket, did he bat at six or was it
Four,
three?
four.
Four, was it four? Yeah,
Yeah.
got it wrong both times.
No, I've always been a firm believer that Shea should bat at 6 or 7 in Test cricket, because the white ball doesn't do as much as the red ball. And
Yeah,
I think that, I mean, if you know Shea, there's certain things technically that you can expose with a red ball that with a white ball he'll get away with.
yeah,
I think that coming in at sort of that 6, 7 area when the ball's not doing as much, when he can get in and get set, that will allow him to be a completely different player, because he's still someone that can have a huge impact on a game just because of his natural ability. He's obviously super
oh,
talented
yeah,
and extremely hardworking, but it's just putting people in the right position so that they can contribute to the team in a manner that will be beneficial for the
yeah,
overall function of that team. So I've always felt as though that he should be in at number 6, 7. And so I think, I mean, based on what we saw with the first class game that he did play, he batted at 6 and kept wicket. And
yeah,
I don't know the last time Shea would have kept wicket in a 4-day match, much less batted at number 6,
yeah,
especially for Barbados, where Shea's probably a lock in to bat at number 3 or 4 with his record for
yeah.
Barbados batting in those positions. So I think again, that's another telltale giveaway that
In some indicators.
yeah, that is what's going to happen. And so you look at certain things, you look at the performances of a Joshua De Silva and a Tevin Imlach. Sort of Imlach's, I guess, been fighting a bit more. Joshua De Silva started the season hot, but then maybe he's been tipped off or heard what's happened. And,
Yeah,
like these little things obviously messes with the psyche of players when they hear
100%, 100%. Yeah.
and have inside sources coming to them and telling them these are things, and then that will make a player's performance taper off as well. So it's going to be interesting to see, but I think that's what's going to happen. Shea's going to probably bat at number six.
Do you think he'll take the gloves then as well?
He definitely will take the gloves across all three formats, in my opinion.
Okay, okay. It's an interesting point that because I think obviously we spoke about obviously the likelihood, the potential of either of the two of Django and Joshua De Silva playing as batters. Could they play as batters at this point when we're talking? We would take with the idea being that one of them take the gloves and then one would be able to play as a batter. There is potential for them to both go into that side as batters. So, but it's interesting, and I think that the point what I was going to ask you as well is how to do the job over three formats and captain over three formats. The pressure of that is massive, and I think I just hope that let's just hypothetically say that Shea has got the captaincy for all three formats for the purpose of this question. Now, I just hope that he has the support behind him because it's a very big ask to do that, and the pressures that come with it is tough. And I just hope that he's got the support network in terms of from a cricketing side of things, from Cricket West Indies, to help him with that and support him because. Um, when you look into it, I just hope that they just don't put everything on him and expect everything to turn into sort of gold overnight, if that makes sense.
I mean, I don't expect it to be a long term solution. I mean, and when I say long term, she's what, 32 this year, so expect
Mm.
it to at max be something that lasts for 3 years.
Yeah,
And then it's going to be a matter of finding a next captain again. But I think that sort of aligns with, I guess, Sammy's current contract tenure.
as well, yeah, of course.
And so that, I guess, gives leeway to grooming somebody over the next 3 years, which in that sense, it's a long period to be able to groom different options for captaincy. I mean,
Yeah,
having said that, one could say a Joshua De Silva was being groomed, but obviously he fell out of favor. And I think it's interesting people are saying to bring him back as a batter when the issue that they were having with him as a wicketkeeper batter is, I guess, the volume of runs.
there was
So,
a run, yeah.
yeah, I mean, another option. So, I actually want to make mention of this. I had been, well, I was apparently they were trying to reprimand me, the Leeward Islands Cricket Board at that point in time. And that matter ended up getting quashed because of a level of ignorance beyond what I will ever be able to understand with that man that's the president of the Leeward Islands Cricket Board. But having said that, I was having a meeting with the CEO, and in that meeting, we ended up started speaking about cricket and how can I at that point in time help to, I guess, develop the and next set of players for the
Yeah, yeah.
Leewards. What we needed to do as a team and as a franchise, and how we could get the best out of each other. Obviously, the players from the board from the players, etc. And I had the idea. I said to him, "Look, you guys should make Alzari Joseph the captain." And he looked at me quizzically, as if to say, "Well, what are you talking about?" Because obviously Alzari Joseph has at that point never captained anyone. And this is a year and a half before he was made the Leeward Islands captain. And I'd said this to the Leeward Islands coach, Stuart Williams, prior to this meeting as well. And everyone just looked at me like, "What are you talking about?" I said, "Well, it's pretty much a shoo-in. If he captains the Leewards, he's going to become the West Indies captain because the West Indies don't have any alternatives."
Yeah, yeah.
And everyone, again, as I said, looked at me quizzically as to what you're talking about. I said, well, he doesn't actually need to even do anything if he's captain in the Leopards, because the Leopards is a functioning team on
Yeah,
its
yeah.
own. Will just be captain in theory, but he won't necessarily have to do much. He's just making bowling changes. The team handles itself.
Help
We've
you.
got more than enough senior players on the field if anything goes wrong. He was made captain a year and a half later for the Super 50. The Leos went to the finals and lost, and he was instantly made the West Indies vice captain in Test and I think ODI cricket or something like that. And I just sat there laughing, thinking to myself, how could these people not have the vision of this? Now,
Yeah,
obviously, Alzari went on and did what he did by walking off the field and
yeah.
sort of messed up all of that. But, just the foresight of seeing what's happening and what could happen
The
if you
bigger
put
picture of it
certain
all. Yeah,
people into
yeah,
positions. If everything had gone well and Azari hadn't done, I guess, what he did, we wouldn't even be having a conversation now. We would be Kraigg Brathwaite would have been replaced by Alzari Joseph as the
yeah,
West Indies Test captain because he'd have been vice captain now for 2 years.
yeah,
But instead, obviously, we're on the search again. But it's just having a level of foresight and understanding of what's happening within West Indies cricket.
yeah,
Um, and I think that's where, I guess, from a managerial or a board perspective, that we sort of go wrong because we don't sort of see things far enough or early enough to
yeah.
sort of put a stop or have a contingency plan in place.
So with that point you just made there in mind, who do you see them going with as the vice captain this time around then?
I honestly don't know because we don't know who's going to be in the team. So before we know that, we can't necessarily make an assumption as to who will be a good voice captain because it may be people like Brandon King, John Campbell in the team, but these are all older guys.
Would you go with an Alec Athanaze, for instance, who's potential not this,
I, I don't think that he needs that pressure, and I don't think that he's
yeah,
performed
yeah, true.
consistently enough. I mean, you look at his returns coming back to first class cricket
Yeah.
this season, hasn't been great. I
No.
think a left field option, maybe someone like a Jaden Sears,
Yeah.
a fast bowling option that you can groom. And I'm sure he's not had much leadership experience, but I mean, 3 years, as I said, is a long time. So you can
Yeah.
get him captain in regional tournaments
And
to
then
gain
doing
experience, and then obviously doing voice captaincy work on
yeah.
the international stage to gain experience as well, and being in and around that think tank.
Yeah.
Because that's someone that you are pretty much sure, barring injury, is going to merit selection
Yeah.
in the team, and so you don't have to worry about his place in the team. So I think
No.
that may be an option for a vice captaincy position.
Yeah, definitely. There's still loads, a lot to between now and the series versus Australia starting is there's loads of questions that need to be answered, and this forward planning and this bigger picture needs to be something that's assessed. And I think I might be wrong here with what I'm going to say, but I think obviously there's the A team play against South Africa in May and June, so that's before that series. Um, so that'd be really interesting to see how they go about picking that and whether they'd be picking people to earmark them for the series against Australia or whether they see it as the next generation of player or however they go about it, really. What do you think how they'll go about that?
I think there'll be a few players that they'll be looking for in terms of selection going forward to the test team. But I think what will also be important is having a strong preparation camp with all the contenders. So I think probably like a 3-4 week preparation camp, and it's sort of a battle of the fittest, and the best players come to the top. Because I mean, if you're talking about a 4 week preparation camp, you can have a good amount of practice matches in the high quality, high intensity games, especially with the French players. You'll have obviously senior players like a Kim Roach off
Yeah,
to
yeah,
a county season who doesn't need to be I guess, doing this to
No.
prepare. Like he knows what he needs, and playing county cricket will be sufficient for him. So it's just understanding different things like that.
Yeah. Do you see Jason Holder coming back into the setup?
I do not. I
No.
don't think that Daren Sammy's a fan of Jason Holder. I think that Jason Holder has probably served his time in West Indies cricket. See, so I mean, especially if they're gonna consider Justin Graves for
As that
that
all,
position.
yeah,
Yeah,
as that all
because I
sort of
don't.
all round. Yeah.
And I think also with the fact that you have a Kemar Roach, a Jaden Sears, and a Shamar Joseph, I think that's quite a good pairing as well
Yeah.
because you've got two young fast bowlers that are obviously highly skilled and did
Yeah.
really well at the international game at the start of their careers, as well as Akima Roach, who's the experienced player guiding them. So I think if anything, they'll probably go for, as I said, Justin Graves, um, who's had a good season thus far in the first class competition and scored his first test century just two test matches ago. Or you'll have an Alzari Joseph for a more out and out fast bowling option.
Yeah. No, it'd be interesting. I think over the next there's two more rounds of fixtures in the 4 day stuff.
Yep.
You go, but you're back to back now, aren't you?
Yep.
So it'd be interesting to see if there's any more indicators from some of the sides that give whether to see how things go and yeah, it is going to be interesting to see how it goes. Ultimately, from you mentioned there about like a training camp stuff and all that side. I hope I hope that Daren Sammy gets the opportunity to implement what he wants to implement. I know we spoke before about the financial aspect to that and that side of things where it just hasn't been that thought process. But I'm really hope um, that he has the backing to be able to go and do what he wants to do from a training perspective and camp wise and from a period from when it finishes next week. Sorry, the following week in terms of the 4 day. What is that gap? How does it look? What are the player requirements and that side of things?
Well, I'm not sure how much of a part Sammy can play in that preparation because remember the West Indies have a series in Ireland and in England as well.
Yeah, in May, yeah. So they come to
Yeah.
Ireland in May, yeah. Oh, sorry, it's only next month.
Yeah.
Taken.
So he will be away for, I guess, some of that time, but
Yeah.
I think he should be back in time for at least 3 weeks to prepare properly for that Australia series because you are talking about Australia will be coming off of the World Test Championship final as well.
Yeah. They're on about a
So,
day nighter, aren't they, in Jamaica for one of the test
yeah,
matches? It'll be
yeah.
interesting.
I think they're trying to work on the lights. I played a day night first class match in Jamaica once, and the ball did all sorts. So that
Okay.
that'd be an interesting match if it's anything like that.
Yeah. Well, you'd think that they'd maybe try and play one of the regional games and under light.
They've been several games this season on the lights.
Yeah, there's not been one in Jamaica though, has there? I don't think.
I think so. I'm
Those
not
are-
sure, but they've been across the region. They've been
Yeah,
several games on the lights. There's actually a game this round on the lights. I think that's Jamaica and Trinidad down at the Brian Lara Stadium.
yeah. Nice. What's is did they change the ball last round of fixtures? Are you now playing with um Duke's balls again? Are you back with didn't they change the balls or something with Kookaburra and Dukes during the
Yeah, they use Jukes for they use Kookaburra, sorry, for the first three games. So the balls have been changed for the last two.
right?
Yeah.
And then the remaining two is Kookaburra as well.
No, Jukes. They've
Sorry,
changed.
to go back to Duke. Sorry, yeah, my apologies.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Uh,
um I think that obviously made a huge impact in terms of performances as well. You saw
yeah, you start the spike.
uh, a spike in terms of runs in the first Jukes balls are doing that much as opposed to well, apparently the Kookaburra ball wasn't doing anything at all. So
No.
I guess any assistance is um, welcomed by the bowlers in any shape. But yeah, I don't find that these are doing that much either.
No, no. Well, hopefully it doesn't do much for you tomorrow, and you can have a nice bat. But yeah, thanks very much. Really good to talk. With it off the back of the news yesterday. And yeah, good luck for the next round of fixtures. I'm sure we'll catch up over the weekend and have our well, you can take your chairman of selectors hat and put that back on again for a bit.
Cheers, Jordan. I'm looking forward to that. Obviously, hoping for a strong end to the season in terms of performances across the region. So let's see how that goes.
Yeah, definitely. All right, speak to you soon. Cheers, guy.
Cheers.